you the quantum mechanics?
Yes, we are the quantum mechanics.
Also known as the justified ancients of woo-woo.
If you're interested in the paranormal and the high strangeness, we're the podcast for you.
Whether you're a believer, a doubter, or somewhere in between.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Peter.
And we are the Quantum Mechanics. We are, again, the Quantum Mechanics. Sitting on our studio table. Peter, what have you got for us?
I'm going to be following some of the themes we've been talking about recently. We're going to be exploring the idea that alien abductions are not the work of intergalactic aliens, but time-travelling humans from the future. This was something we talked about a few episodes ago in conjunctions with other theories about UFOs, and I thought it was really worth digging a bit deeper because I was a bit fascinated by it.
And you were saying there are some stories in there which might be convincing?
Well, yes, that really do back up the argument, but even if you don't agree with the hypothesis that these are us from the future, we have got some incredible cases to go through. So either way, you're going to get something out of it, I think.
Smashing. I love that.
Now, this theory that I'm talking about is called the extratempestrial model.
I was born with one of those.
Yeah.
Had to have it removed.
Oh, not the probe. And this model was created by Dr. Michael P. Masters. And I'm going to be focused on his book published in 2022, simply titled The Extratempestrial Model. No subtitle to it, which I quite like. It's very rare you get that in a paranormal book.
Straight up and down simple.
Yeah, like it. So to give you some information about the author of the book, Michael Masters, now he started his fascination with the UFO phenomenon when he was just 8 years old, Ben. His father had told him a story of when he had seen strange lights in the sky while working in rural Ohio. And his father also, I guess a lot of people at that time, probably the 80s, had a copy of Whitley Strieber's book, Communion. Mm-hmm. So obviously that was later adapted into a movie as well. So the 8-year-old Masters became obsessed with the artwork of that book, which if you see the original cover, it kind of features what we would now call as an alien grey on it. And the 8-year-old started to make connections that I guess would stay with him throughout his life and really shaped his career and what he's focused his time on.
So he saw it and recognised it?
Well, not so much that. He says, upon seeing this obscure alien figure with its broad forehead, small face, narrow chin and large hunting black eyes, I remember being moved by an ephemeral image that entered my mind. Good vocabulary at the age of 8, didn't he? He says it encompassed 3 humanoid creatures visualised together. So this is what he imagined. On the left-hand side was something like a chimpanzee or an early hominin form. In the middle was a nondescript modern human. And on the right was that odd yet entirely familiar alien creature from the book's cover. Even at a young age and knowing nothing about phylogenetic relationships, it was evident that the human in the centre of this mental image resembled both the chimpanzee to the left and the alien to the right, which led me to wonder if they could somehow be related. So, yeah, this was formed at a really early age for him. And it's perhaps why he went on with his choice of career and kind of side by side his obsession with ufology. So after earning his PhD from Ohio State University in 2009, he specialised in hominin evolutionary anatomy and taught at Montana Tech. So that cover and that incident had a real thing on for him.
Yeah, I mean, so was he convinced that he was part of something? Like he was part of a program, or
no?
He was just fascinated.
It's just fascinated by
right? Okay.
It. He then started to form his theories about the nature of UFOs and alien encounters. And put simply, his theory, I guess, brings together 2 concepts into one. That alien encounters are not with extraterrestrials, but with future humans, and that they are travelling through or manipulating time to visit us from the future. Putting the 2 things together. Now, he coined the phrase extratempestrial as an alternative to extraterrestrial by replacing the Latin root ter, meaning earth, and temp, meaning time.
Okay.
I like what he did there.
I do too, smart Alec.
Yeah, not that I know anything about Latin, but there you go. Shall we get into some of the reasons?
Carpe diem.
Yeah, yeah. I like those. They're the ones the big ones that swim,
Yes,
aren't they?
yes.
Carpe diems. Some of the reasons Masters puts forward for why it is more likely that the UFO phenomena is about future humans rather than intergalactic aliens. Now, he talks about a point which I think is really interesting in this context. He says it's often touted that alien civilizations in our vast galaxy know us through our radio waves and transmissions. That's a main theory, right? But he says we only began advertising our existence as an advanced life form in 1974. That year, to celebrate a major upgrade to the recently collapsed Arecibo radio telescope, we sent the most powerful broadcast ever deliberately beamed into space. Presently, this 1,679-bit radio message, which looks like a screenshot from an old Atari game. Wasn't there a crop circle that did that?
There was,
message?
yeah.
Yeah. He says it's only travelled about 50 light years from Earth, which is about 0.19% of its way to its final destination in the M13 globular star cluster, which is at the edge of the Milky Way. So its full journey will take it 21,000 light years.
That's a long way.
That's it. So I guess what he's saying, in terms of the galaxy, our broadcasts have only travelled a really minute, small distance, which doesn't mean that necessarily they would have been picked up by anyone.
Yeah. No, I that is always the problem with that argument.
Yeah.
The people that are visiting us, if they look through a telescope, they'd most likely see dinosaurs.
It always reminds me of the start of the movie Contact.
Yes, because it's got the Hitler clip.
Yeah, well, the very first shots of that movie, the Hitler bit comes later, but it's basically starting off on the planet Earth, and then it kind of goes out in time and where the radio messages, so the music changes, and then you just get into complete silence, basically, in not too distant time. So Masters also picks up on themes highlighted by other leaders in the field like Jacques Vallée and J. Allen Hynek, that if an advanced alien race are visiting us from other planets, we would expect to consistently see them coming and going in the space around our, small planet. Instead, they just seem to pop in and out of our existence, and often in areas of high electromagnetic anomalies. So, yeah, this kind of sudden appearance and disappearance, which is a factor of UFO sightings often, doesn't really lend itself to an extraterrestrial model, in his opinion.
Yeah, okay.
Communication is another area that doesn't lend itself to the more traditional ET model. So the majority of abductees report either vocal communication or telepathic communication in their own language. He points out, ascertaining symbolic substance from them so we can decipher meaning and establish mutual understanding is an improbable prospect. There is the issue of whether we would be capable of communicating with beings who evolved on a separate planet but who happen to attain similar levels of intellect at the same time. For instance, he writes, what if the extraterrestrials buzzed and danced like bees, used infrasound like an elephant, ultrasound like a tarsier, seismic communication like the demon African mole rats, or any other form of vibrational communication?
He was really reaching to the edge of the animal kingdom.
He really was, yeah. When you've got to go the
demon mole
African
rats.
mole rat, yeah. That's on the edge. But he's basically saying, there are many forms of communication, even here on Earth. So, because most or every close encounter involves vocalised or telepathic speech that takes place in the contactee's native language, our shared means of communication is far more similar than we would expect of an extraterrestrial entity. Now, I started to think, surely there's a flaw in this, though, because if they're doing it telepathically, does language matter? But I guess you've still got to be able to understand each other's frame of reference, way of thinking. So it's not just about the language alone, is it, in that sense?
No, it isn't. But I would say ideas can be communicated. But then I see what you're saying about frame of reference. Even the idea of a car might be so alien it completely misses misses the point.
It made me think about that, like what is a colour? Because to us it's completely different to a dog, for instance.
It's a frequency.
Yeah. Let's talk about time. So this idea of, they're time travellers from the future. When I first started reading about Master's theory, my initial reaction was, he's just come up with this time travel concept to make his theory stack up, to make it fit, right? But the more you think about it and delve into it, it's kind of impossible to look at the UFO phenomenon without considering time travel or time manipulation. I mean, the 5 nearest solar systems to ours are between 4 and 8 light years away. And if you accept that it's possible to travel at the speed of light, this is up for debate, you're talking about, even just to those initial solar systems near ours, you're talking about an 8 to 16 year round trip. Well, at least for the people that you're leaving behind, not for you. I'm not getting into E equals MC squared, but,
The planet Gok again.
Yeah. I mean, that assumes there's an advanced alien life in our nearest neighbouring solar systems, or some forms of intelligent life, that they've developed light speed travel and they are willing to invest that much lost time in relation to the people that they're leaving behind. I mean, if they came from our nearest galaxy, it would take 2.5 million light years to get here. So you're only, I guess it depends how much they age, but you're still talking about they'd have to be pretty close to us to be visiting. But if they develop time travel or a way of manipulating time, I guess the whole concept opens up, If they've done it as well, maybe we've done it in the future. So you're back to that paradox of, if they've invented it, well, surely we would have, and we'd be coming back, right?
You just get into the grandfather paradox, don't you?
You do. We're not going back to the grandfather clocks, are we?
No, but you've really made me think. I mean, what if the great secret is that they are us from the future and we have to protect people from getting the time machine, otherwise we blink out of existence? That's possible.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of stuff there. I mean, there is quite a lot in the book which I've not featured in here about multiple universes, block universes, all the different things. I think the summary is a block universe model kind of probably suits the time travel thing better than others. Otherwise, I think it does away with all these paradoxes, but it's quite complicated to go into, so I'm not going to go into that today.
And the mole people?
So let's get into the appearance of these quote-unquote alien visitors. The odds are very low, Master says, that another 2-legged, upright walking hominin with 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, 5 digits on each hand and foot, and an enlarged brain and necrocranium would evolve again in a separate solar system. It is even less likely when considering the specific environmental and biocultural factors that culminate in our complex condition, making our species unique among the plethora of other organisms on this planet. Taking into consideration countless consistent reports provided by sound-minded individuals who assert that they have seen or interacted with these beings, both they and us seemingly share numerous derived characteristics unique to the hominin lineage. Among the most recognisable of these are our bipedal form of locomotion, or upright walking, which is the trait that defines our hominin lineage.
Is it not hominid?
He keeps using hominin.
Does he? Sorry, I didn't mean to correct you. Just like I thought hominin was a word that was the same backwards as forwards.
Yeah.
But well, he knows better than me.
Yeah. Unless he's got it. Oh, that would be hilarious if he got it wrong, and that's his area of expertise.
No.
He said it's important to note that bipedalism is incredibly rare among all animals here on Earth.
Yeah.
Reports of close encounters also indicate that we and the visitors share traits like bilateral symmetry, relative hairlessness, dexterous hands, similar sexual or same sexual reproduction, and a lack of a tail, which he says is very rare on Earth. And a large globular brain, big eyes, and a small nose and mouth. So, yeah, I guess he's saying, if you're going to go with that, it's very unique. We are quite unique. I did see something recently, actually, a little clip of Brian Cox. I love the universe, me.
I love my tail.
Yeah. Talking about putting forward that theory that we've talked about before, that actually are we the aliens on the planet because we're so different.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting to hear it from him.
Yes.
Let's take a look at what they are up to, what they're doing. Again, Masters believes their behaviour while here makes more sense in his model. He writes, "It is hard to fathom why extraterrestrials from a distant star system would zip around our skies and oceans and occasionally perform covert medical examinations on us, then return home without introducing themselves. This scenario seems far more paradoxical than one in which our distant descendants return to investigate their own past while avoiding overt contact for fear of disrupting our social order or our entire timeline." So I think that does make sense. You know, it's back to what the heck's going on with the anal probes. He's got a theory on that, which we'll come on to.
They need to reinvent Andrex.
Yeah. Masters also mentions Nick Bostrom. I mean, we've done a whole episode on his theory on the podcast before, but basically putting forward the theory that we live in a simulation, and it's most likely a historical simulation for future generations to study us in the past for them. I mean, that makes a lot of sense in his model. Lots of the reasons that would apply to his model do fit into Bostrom's, and he kind of acknowledges that. But I was left thinking, Ben, the problem with Bostrom in this context is, why would they look different to us, even if it's only slightly? Why would they travel in different craft? You wouldn't need to. If this is a virtual space, you know, a la your point about Star Trek a few weeks ago, you just make yourself look like us, wouldn't you?
Yeah, unless something changed. But I do think it unlikely you'd turn up naked, which they often do.
Yeah.
Unless they're AIs, you see.
Yeah.
That, I think, is possibly quite likely.
Yeah, or they don't care that we notice. But then again, they'd probably be more blatant. So I think there are problems linking this with this simulation hypothesis. Let's move on to abductions. Masters cites the similarities and consistencies in the majority of abduction cases. And, he makes the point, we're not just talking about modern day cases, that, these encounters have been recorded throughout history. And it made me think, number one, who would have the most interest in A, remaining relatively secretive, and B, visiting us over thousands of years? I mean, if it's us travelling from the future, it does make sense, doesn't it? Those two things would go together. Now, in terms of more modern-day encounters and abductions, he's got this amazing fact, which I'd never heard before. He states that a recent survey suggests that the number of people abducted could be as high as 6% of the population.
I've heard figures like that.
That's nuts. I mean, that's a huge amount.
Yeah, and why?
Yeah, that really shocked me.
I mean, one of the things that you rarely hear, I mean, it does get reported, but you don't see people reporting, they came into my room and took my hamster. Yeah. I mean, there has been cases of zoo animals, but what on earth are they doing with all of those entities?
Yeah, I don't. Just leave the ones with tails. We're not interested in them.
No, don't take the tail.
Don't take the tail ones. He talks about the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Life. So Edgar Mitchell was a former Apollo astronaut who's set up this thing and does various research. Apparently, they conducted a study of 3,265 people who reported that they'd been abducted. 52% of people described the aliens as human-looking. Now, that doesn't sound too high, but he points out the question they were actually asked was to describe the non-human intelligence they encountered. So he was saying, in terms of the way the question's phrased, you would probably try and play down the human appearance because you're being asked to describe something that's not human, rather than an open question of what did you encounter. But even in that context, 52% described them as human-looking. Now, in terms of the human-looking, there are three key groups that were described. We're short greys, 3 to 4 feet tall, 51% reported those in their abduction. Tall greys, 5 to 9 feet tall, reported by 33%, and the term hybrids at 26%. But all humanoid, basically.
Right, yeah.
Not that it's relevant necessarily, but the groups consistently reported cigar-shaped, triangle or dish-shaped craft. So that's another consistency. Now, the book does, as I mentioned, go into a series of abduction cases. It covers 15 cases, to be precise. And Masters believes these cases back up his theory that these are time-travelling humans rather than interstellar aliens. I'm not going to go into all the cases, firstly, because we don't have time. Secondly, we've covered a number of them on the podcast before. It includes the Betty and Barney Hill case, Travis Walton case, Terry Lovelace, the Ariel School case in Zimbabwe. These are all in the book. What I've done is pick 2 or 3 that we've not covered in great detail before on the podcast. But I think a number of the points do apply to all of them, and I will reference a couple of the other ones as I'm going on. Let's start by getting into the cases. So the first one is of Leo and Mike Dworshak, which happened in North Dakota in the USA in 1932. I don't know if you're aware.
An early one.
Yeah, which is important, actually, I think. So Leo and Mike were young boys at the time. They were enjoying the summer of 1932, exploring an area near the farm they lived on. They came across a large, round silver metallic object that they could see from the top of a hill. So Leo was 12 years old at the time and Mike was 7. They described the object as a massive machine that was as big as a barn. So big.
So, hang on. It's floated or landed?
It's in the air at this point.
As big as a barn. Okay, I mean, that's about the same size as the GOT guy.
It did land. They then approached the craft. This is fascinating, but they bumped into an invisible shield that would not let them get any closer.
Interesting.
And Ben, as they watched, the good old ramp descended from under the belly of the craft. And 3, to use their words, people walked out onto the ground.
Hello, I'm Don.
Well, you'd be surprised. It does go a bit like that.
Really?
Yeah. So I'll tell you another interesting bit, and it did remind me of that experience that I had and people had talked about, of almost not caring about it, being kind of nonchalant about this. They didn't watch this scene for long. They were worried because they were late for supper, so they left.
Okay, I mean, is supper really more important than that?
But I did wonder if it's that feeling of, when
feeling,
I said
yeah.
that I had, where you just go, oh, that's weird. And
Yeah.
I just carry on with your day. But they did keep going back to the same spot, hoping to see the craft again. After a couple of weeks, they thought they were going to be out of luck, but it did appear again. It flew over their heads and landed in the exact same spot that they'd seen it in before. This time, there were twice as many people who all seemed to be wearing conventional clothes.
What, coming out of the craft?
Yeah. They were wearing trousers and shirts. The first time they saw them, there was 3 of them. They were wearing overalls. This time they're in trousers and shirts. Such a weird thing, that, isn't it?
I just question whether they really are trousers and shirts, do you know?
Right.
Or a projection.
Maybe.
That's so, hello, we're your friends. We're
Yeah.
not going to harm you. Look, these come from Marks and Spencer's.
Yeah. They kept going back to the same spot and kept seeing these visitors come and go.
Any communication?
Get on to that. They described when the craft left, it would rise about 15 feet off the ground and then suddenly disappear out of sight in an instant. So over this period, the boys and the occupants of the craft, they kind of got accustomed to each other, it says in the book. On one of the earliest occasions, Mike and Leo observed the men doing what appeared to be exercises outside of the craft, doing a bit of physical exercise. Oh, it's been a long journey.
That's quite bizarre.
That is bizarre, isn't it? The boys decided to walk closer, and this time, not only was the force field not there, but the men were smiling at them and seemed genuinely happy that the boys decided to approach.
I bet they did. Don't show him the probe.
The boys said these visitors looked similar to one another. Brown hair, tan skin, blue eyes, and a husky build. Leo stating that they looked healthier than anyone he'd ever seen before.
And massive tails.
Yeah. Now, Ben, if we think about this in the context of the model of future time travelling, it does make sense, right? They're human-looking, they're doing human things like exercising, wearing human-style clothes. The boys always describe them as people or men. And remember, this is pre the real big UFO flaps, right? This is in the 1930s. So far, they just observed and had minimal contact, but the boys tried to communicate with them. Mike tried to speak to them using a mixture of English and German, which were his two languages.
Because he had a BMW and that was all that was in the manual.
Yeah. Now, first...
Guten Tag.
Guten Tag. My name is Mike.
I need windscreen wiper frickin' flacken, yes, yes.
Vorspronder.
That's Audi.
Wrong one.
Sorry, I'm just going to say that is crazy because that means forward with technology. Imagine if Audi, that slogan, had inspired future humans.
Oh, can you imagine? Imagine if the UFOs got the four rings of Audi on the
that's
side.
just what I was thinking. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be brilliant.
That's why Bob Lazar called it the sport model. Sort of looked a little bit like an R8.
Yeah. Have you got a turbo in that?
Yeah. Because they would know. Would they know? They would have they'd been studying history books.
Yeah.
They would know what some of these things are.
Yeah.
You know, Heinz beans.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, the Heinz beans. I like them, yes.
Yeah. I guess in the 30s it would have had to be a Ford in America, probably not a BMW. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, Mike thought his attempts at communication hadn't worked because the two visitors just went back inside the craft. But they returned with a third man, who started to speak to the boys, first in German and then English.
This is Mr. Rolf. He comes from the school down the road. He teaches English, French and German.
Well, that's kind of what it was. It was like that's what they were thinking. It's like, oh, they've gone to get the guy who knows how to speak the language. This guy told them he spoke over 500 languages. Keep that in your mind, because that's going to come up again later in the podcast. Now, Masters points out that the idea that an alien visitor would be able to learn one language, let alone 500, is unthinkable, but becomes more plausible if they are our descendants. So assuming an alien civilization happened to evolve something even remotely similar to what we would use as vocalized vibration-based communication, it would take an inordinate amount of time in the beginning stages of contact to learn each other's language, Masters writes. Now, like the Betty and Barney Hill case, these visitors told the boys they were from a different galaxy, that they were alien visitors. But they also told the boys they were from a place far beyond our world by millions of years in time. So kind of somehow contradictory there. I mean, Masters makes the salient point that he connected this case with Betty and Barney Hill. He said, so if you think about the two cases together, he said, the likelihood that bipedal human-like beings evolved on another planet is very low, but the probability that these hominins evolved the same way on 3 separate planets with one in an entirely different galaxy, and that these other 2 interstellar human species happen to converge on Earth within 29 years of one another is effectively 0. Because in the Betty and Barney Hill case, they said they came from a different place.
Zeta Reticuli, I think.
Yeah.
Which might be a... to throw them off.
Yeah, exactly.
As if they were going to come looking for them.
Yeah, he said it is doubtful we would ever be discovered by beings who live in a different galaxy, or that they could or would spend 5,000 years travelling here on a spaceship just to study grasshoppers and do jumping jacks in rural North Dakota during the Great Depression, which I think is a good point.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds very much like the airship flap, the people coming out exercising.
Yeah.
Wearing normal human clothes.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Very similar. Same time-ish as well. I mean,
yeah.
That is a mystery, but so what are the Greys then?
Well, I think the Greys are us.
But who are these dudes?
Well, that's a very good question. but maybe it depends on when you're travelling through time. Because if it's an evolution, that they could be much, much future beings, the Greys. Who knows? Another statement that could indicate time travel. This is quite interesting. The boys were told that no one would believe their story until they were old men. So this is, remember, it's 1930s. Weird. UFOs, let alone encounters with extraterrestrial beings, are not really a thing, are they? So could the statement indicate that the boys, by the time they're old men, the UFO phenomena would be taken more seriously, considered or accepted? I mean, it certainly took them a long time to get their story out there.
Yes, that would make sense. But I'm still not sold on the reason for this. The reason is still what it's ineffable.
When Mike asked the visitors why they kept coming back to the same location, he was told they were studying life patterns in that valley and would continue monitoring it and other places as our world, quote unquote, gets deeper into trouble.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Glad I asked.
Yeah. Based on his interactions and observations of the men's behaviour, Leo came to believe that they were collecting and analysing insects to monitor environmental toxins in the area. Again, that could fit the argument that they are our human ancestors and they're just protecting their future environment or studying it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still not hugely convinced.
Well, a really strange bit about this case is this all started, remember, in the summer of 1932. But these boys saw and had contact with the visitors over a number of years, with them reporting their last interaction with them in the 1960s. Leo stated that over this 30-year period, the visitors didn't seem to age.
Well, that's because they're not going through linear time, I guess.
Yeah.
But
let's get into the last interaction with them. This is the last one, and then we'll kind of talk a bit more about it. But so this took place in the autumn of 1963. Mike and Leo, it's interesting this was their last interaction as well. Mike and Leo were given a tour of the ship. They said there was a kitchen with food and cooking equipment, a sleeping quarters with a bathroom, and check this bit out, a fully automated toilet. A bit like the ones that you now get.
Ones.
Yeah, like you get in Japan now. But they had an automated toilet.
Oh, that's very good.
Again, you come back to this point that, okay, they look like us, they dress like us, their craft had rooms familiar to the boys, and they've even got a futuristic loo.
Well, they go to the bathroom like us.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so...
But it did take them that long to... I mean, I guess the bits of the story that I'm like... hold on, this went on for nearly 30 years. You didn't take a camera, you didn't take photos, you didn't take anyone else with you. It almost became their little secret together, which does, you know, on one hand, from a believer's point of view, it's frustrating. From a skeptic's point of view, you'd go, really?
Sounds a bit like Adamski.
Yeah.
Keeping them shielded. But what is the reason for their secrecy? We don't know.
Yeah. Well, shall we go into another case?
Yes.
This one is from 1940 in Montana in the USA, known as the Udo Wartina case. So this encounter starts in May of 1940. Udo Wartina, 37-year-old miner, was looking for gold-bearing ore near a glacial deposit in Montana. While clearing boulders from a riverbed, Wartina spotted what he described as a large airship hovering over a dam he had made in the stream so he could sluice for gold.
This is the second gold mining story I've had in 3 weeks. It's fascinating.
It really is, isn't it? So Wartina had climbed higher to get a look at the craft. Later, in a letter he wrote to former astronaut John Glenn in 1976, so Glenn had become a senator at this point, he described the craft as a large dish-shaped object measuring about 35 feet high and over 100 feet across, like two soup plates, one inverted over the other. It was stainless steel in colour, though not as bright and shiny. Now, as we've heard many times before, Ben, he said a stairway descended from the bottom of the ship.
Lovely.
Yeah, the good old stairway.
Yeah.
And
Solid steel.
And a quote unquote, a man descended the stairs and walked towards him.
A man.
Now, Waltina also began walking towards the man, who was described as nice looking, about 35 years of age, white hair, clear, almost translucent skin.
She's off for some space nookie.
He is, yeah. I wondered if that was his Tinder profile.
Yeah.
I'm nice looking, about 35 years old, white hair, clear, almost translucent skin.
From millions of years in the future.
Yeah. So this is weird as well. The man approached Waltina, shook his hand, and apologised because they'd not known anyone was going to be in the area.
I mean, don't worry, mate. It's fine.
He was also told that it was not their custom to interrupt or allow themselves to be seen. After a brief formal introduction...
Just look over there, would you?
Yeah, just pretend I'm not here. Nothing to see here. The man asked Waltina if he would mind if they took some water from the stream. It's very polite.
Yeah.
He approved, but asked why they were getting water from his stream and not the large lake nearby. The man replied that the water was good, convenient and free of algae. Later, during a detailed tour of the ship, where he was taught much about the inner workings, Waltina learned that the fuel source for these aircraft came from hydrogen extracted from water, which could explain why its relative cleanness was important. Their stated intent was to avoid being seen, also helps explain why they sought fuel from the high mountain stream and not the nearby Canyon Ferry Lake, which sits in more open and inhabited area of Montana. So, yeah, but it was very close to this big lake, but they were getting it from the stream. Once again, Waltina noted the man's adept English-speaking abilities. He described it as he talked like a linguist would, slowly picking his words to ensure proper grammar and pronunciation. Interesting.
As if he'd learned it, or...
I guess the implication is, yeah, he maybe not his mother tongue, but he was proficient in it, as if he was trying to get it right.
He doesn't want any mother tongue in the universe. So...
And I'll tell you what that made me think, because if you think about how we speak English now compared to a few hundred years, you would have to, even if you were an English speaker, let's go with the future humans coming back, you would have to get into the dialect of the time.
Of course you would, yeah. And you wouldn't know what quite a lot of things meant.
Yeah.
So his argument for this is basically meeting another bipedal tailless race is so unlikely it must be us. That's basically what his argument boils down to.
Yeah, apart from the fact that, you know, the kind of Fermi paradox thing, the time it would take to travel here, if you were an alien species, communication, breathing the same air. You know, none of these aliens were wearing equipment that allowed them to breathe. I mean, there's a lot going on, right? That we'd have to be either incredibly similar species or alien related, or it has to be some kind of connection with us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating with the communication. You know that study I talked about earlier, Ben? They found that 75% of abductees said that they were communicated with in English.
Yeah, and I think I had a stat the other day. It was like 92% of them felt like it was a positive experience.
Yeah. Well, these two are positive. I'm going to come on to one that wasn't such in a minute.
Okay.
But these two were, okay, this is just nuts, right? So, you know that case we covered earlier with the two boys?
Yeah.
I asked you to remember something about language.
500 languages.
Well, Tina was told by this visitor that, I quote, that they knew over 500 languages and were learning ours and improving them all the time. So he was told about 500 languages, that we speak 500 languages, or I speak 500 languages.
That is a strange coincidence.
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah.
That's nuts, isn't it? They then said, like the previous case, do you want to have a tour of our craft? Didn't take him 30 years. This was on the one visit.
Right.
So, you know. Inside the ship, he described being taken to a room roughly 12 by 16 feet in size, with benches and indirect light filling the space. He also saw another man who he described as having snow white hair. So again, like the boys did. He was given an explanation of how the craft operated. The man said, "As you notice, we are floating above the ground, and though the ground slopes, the ship is level. There are in the outside rim 2 flywheels, one turning one way and the other in the opposite direction." He explained that this gives the ship its own gravitation, or rather overcomes the gravitational pull of the Earth and other planets, the Sun and the stars, and through the pull of the stars and planets, to ride like you do when you sail on ice. It's 1940s, remember?
Yeah.
He was also told that the 2 rings spin in opposite direction to develop a magnetic force.
Similar but different to what other people have said.
Yeah.
And I think, again, sounds a little bit like the Nazi bell.
Yeah.
Sounds a little bit like a number of other things.
Yeah.
Is it a ruse
Yeah.
to throw us off? I don't know. Like as with ever, I would be much happier if they just came and said, "Look, do you want to know what's happened in the last 4 million years? Let me show you."
Yeah, but we'll get on to the reasons they might not do that. But let's just complete on this Wartina thing. He asked where the men were from, and they, as with the boys, they said they were from a distant planet. The interesting part about this bit, we talked about that feeling of nonchalance and memories. Wartina does not remember much about the discussion of their home planet. He had one, but he can't remember very much about it, which is strange given the length of detail he remembers about everything else. The author considers whether this distant planet response, telling them they're from a distant planet or that they're aliens, and the fact that these crafts seem to go out of their way not to be seen, might be something, we mentioned this the other week, akin to Star Trek's Prime Directive. So trying not to interfere or influence the people they are visiting. I guess kind of there's all implications of timelines and changing our behaviour. That's what the Prime Directive is about,
it is,
right?
Yes. And I suppose that would prevent us from evolving faster than we were supposed to. I don't know, though, because I think the Prime Directive would stop them landing there even.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying they're completely copying the Star Trek one, but it might be something akin to it, I guess.
Yeah, it might be. I just think, I don't know, it all seems incredibly convenient.
Yeah.
And there is something much more, I think I said this before, something much more alluring about having aliens come from across the other side of the universe than it just being
us.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I think I would be, I'd be impressed, but I'd just be like, okay, well, that's that then.
Perhaps to back up that theory of not wanting to interfere, when Wartina asked them about religion and whether they knew Jesus Christ, the visitors said they would like to speak of these things but were unable to. Religion and beliefs were the areas that the visitors refused to discuss.
Oh.
They kind of answered much else that he wanted to know. I mean, what is really interesting in this case and the previous one with the 2 boys, these 2 incidents took place roughly 10 years apart. The location for both cases is within 21 miles of each other.
Yeah.
Which could mean, whether they were time travellers or aliens, that they may have encountered the same visitors, right? Similar description of the craft, both inside and out, the look of the visitors, the fact they were all told that the visitors could speak 500 language, and like the boys, Wartina was told that no one would believe him at the time, but in years to come he would be able to tell his story.
I'm going to float something by you.
Go on.
Performance art theatre?
What, in that area? Yeah, possible.
I mean, it's extravagant, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
That they kind of were a group who knew each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible, because there's no other, outside of the three witnesses, there's no proof, yeah. But why would you keep that going for 30 years?
Larks.
Wow. Well, even after, because the boys ended up fighting in the war. They had all these experiences and came back. It's like, I'm not saying that would exclude you from keeping your art project going, but it's interesting though, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I mean, people, lock themselves in a box for 30 days suspended above a river. People do all sorts of things.
Yeah, it's possible.
It is possible, but
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So where does he go with this? Does he and that is my thesis, they come from around here, deal with it, good night.
Kind of, yeah, a bit of just, I think it's more he's explaining this as a way of, this makes more sense than anything else we've got. And it's worth mentioning, actually, one of the cases in the book, I said last week when you were doing the podcast, it was your story really made me think about one of the stories I was reading in the book. And it's a case in Brazil where a man is taken aboard a craft for some, I don't know, private time with a female visitor. No misty pants this time. Going to talk about that one in Ben and Peter's Extra Scoop.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we'll come back to that. But
I'll get my misty pants on.
Get your misty pants on. Because of what you're saying, Ben, these kind of all took place, most of these take place in America. Those two that we just featured were close together. Like you said, maybe it is some art project. And because so many of these cases are from there, I thought the final case I wanted to feature was something a lot closer to home to us. So this is a case from Manchester, England from 1979. It's the Linda Jones case. At the time, Linda Jones was a 36-year-old homemaker living in Didsbury in Manchester. While her husband was out working a late shift, Linda had been hosting a friend at her home. As her friend had ridden their bike there, which had no lights, Linda suggested that she and the kids walk them home. Nice, it was a nice night. They left the house. That was Lydia, her friend, Lydia's two children who were aged 5 and 15. They parted ways with their friend and headed home around 7:30 p.m. At one point, they stopped to admire some wildflowers when Linda's oldest child shouted, "Mum, the moon is coming towards us."
Oh dear.
As she turned to see what all the commotion was about, Linda saw a strange object moving swiftly across the sky and over the Didsbury golf course on the other side of the river. It's really weird when you get them the kind of British ones.
Yeah,
Didsbury golf course, it's like, yeah, I've kind of driven past that.
Yeah.
She described it as looking like a large frisbee, which was spinning along its axis while tilted at a slight angle. The strange object slowly and silently passed overhead, then dropped down in front of Linda and her children on the other side of a flood embankment. Linda felt an overwhelming urge to investigate. At first she walked towards the object, but as her excitement mounted, she began running up the flood embankment to get a better look. She could then see a large craft about 25 metres in front of her. Now able to see it better, she described the object as having an oblong shape like a rugby ball. It was approximately 18 metres across, glowed a bright orange colour and had a detached bright white light on top. So that's a bit like
the school.
Yeah, the school one. She also recalls the object was spinning, and peculiarly, it disappeared and reappeared in front of them as if fading in and out of existence. And we've heard that before on other cases as well.
Yes, cloaking and decloaking.
Yeah. She described time slowing down around them. She experienced 2 hours of missing time after the event. Now, this is something that was highlighted in other cases featured, that time seems to change and shift while people are either inside or in close proximity to these craft. This is a big theory, which again I think lends itself to some kind of manipulation of time. I mean, there is an amazing case in Jacques Vallée's book, The Invisible College. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it highlights this loss of time thing in the most extreme way. So the basic story is a college student gets separated from his friends and is taken on board a craft. He was returned to the spot he was taken after a couple of hours on board, only to find that 18 days had passed by.
Whoa.
When the man was reunited with his friends, it was noted that his clothes were still clean, he was still clean shaven, this is nuts, a flower that he was wearing in his lapel was in perfect condition.
I think they abducted him to find out why he was wearing a flower.
Yeah, what do you do wearing a flower? I do think that, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So
for him, it was 2 hours. For everybody, when they finally found him, it had been 18 days.
See, that contrast with Travis Walton, who came back with a full-grown beard. Well, not a full-grown beard, but 5 days of beard.
Yeah.
That's... Okay, so different systems, don't know, but wow.
Another feature we've talked about is, we just mentioned it today, that hypnotic nature of these encounters.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, the author picks up on something you mentioned, Ben, the other week about Terry Lovelace and the Devil's Den case, that Lovelace had this urge to go camping at that location. He wasn't particularly into camping, right? And there's this amazing scene playing out and they just go back to bed, right?
Yeah.
As if nothing was happening. Well, in this case, Linda experienced something similar. Her first response was to run towards the craft, leaving her children. Now, remember, the youngest was 5 years old, right? So she just forgot about them. And it was only when her daughter shouted, "Mum, come back," that Linda Jones snapped out of this trance.
Save yourself.
Yeah. She snapped out of the trance and stopped running towards the ship.
Oh, that is so... Close Encounters.
Yeah, almost the other way round, though, isn't it, in a way? Yeah.
Well, no, but like he was running towards, wasn't he? He wanted to go towards the ship.
Yeah, the kid. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also Richard Dreyfuss. It's Richard Dreyfuss, isn't it?
Right.
Because he builds the thing at a mashed potato, and he has to
and they
get
have to
there.
go to. Yeah. Right. You're right. It's like this draw. Yeah, that's the whole thing with the Jacques Vallée character, isn't it? What drew you here?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. Well, once that feeling had subsided, she quickly, her mood turned into a state of fear. And she said she felt a strong feeling of deja vu. Putting all this aside, she grabbed her children and ran swiftly down the embankment away from the ship. But she realised it was now moving alongside them.
In the car?
As they were running.
Oh, running, right.
Now, while they were running, they noticed this is bonkers. They noticed another, and I guess this could be time-related, strange phenomena. The short grass they were running through suddenly began growing tall beneath their feet, rising almost 6 feet in height. And it was also being pushed down by the strong force from above. Can you imagine that?
That was also reported in that Welsh UFO incident where the woman was aboard a craft seeing all those hideous... breeding programs.
Yeah.
When she would drop back in the field, she said that the grass was of varying lengths.
Okay.
That was a detail. Yeah.
There's also something like that in the Travis Walton case, that after the event, trees near the abduction site grew 36 times the rate of comparable trees away from the site, and only on one side, the side facing the craft.
Yeah, that Welsh triangle, the Welsh pyramid case as well. They noted the trees were growing strangely,
which does lend itself to some kind of manipulation of time, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and potentially gravity, potentially lots of different things. But yeah, I mean, those ones are more compelling because the physical evidence is left. I think. When we get a couple of people, it reminded me of like the airman in Hello, Hello. Hello, Smithers here. We just, we're from your future, don't mind us. It's weird. I reckon they just mess in. I really do.
Well, after the event, through hypnotic regression, Linda described that she'd actually been taken on board the craft. In these sessions, she described seeing men in fedora hats.
Come on.
That's what she said. And short people in one-piece jumpsuits. These people all looked identical to each other. She described them as human, and she felt she had met one of them before. Well, shortly after her encounter, Linda experienced a number of medical problems, so we've heard this before. And the scariest one, she was shocked to be informed she'd recently suffered a miscarriage, which she was completely unaware of, and there was scar tissue that was found as well, and she knew nothing about this.
Yeah, alien breeding program.
She came to believe she'd been in contact with abducted by these visitors since she was a child. Now, we've talked before about being cautious about testimony from hypnotic regression.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a strange incident involving Linda and her husband 7 years before the encounter that I've just talked about, which could mean that there is multiple contact for her. So this happened, 7 years earlier in 1972. Linda Jones and her husband Trevor went out for a drink at the Swan Public House in Knutsford, a market town in Cheshire. While en route, around 9 p.m, the couple stopped at a traffic light when all of a sudden their car began spinning.
Like on a turntable?
Yeah, like... The next thing they remembered was driving away from the stoplight, turning a corner and finding the pub in complete darkness as it was now 2:30 a.m.
Gutted. Any chance it lasted?
Yeah. Not even a lock-in going on.
Oh, man.
So, again, in this case, we have the human appearance of the visitors. I just think that example of, somehow messing with time with that growing of the grass is just the weirdest thing for me about that one.
Yeah, I do too. That is, that's what I like about those strange reported bits which I go beyond, like, harder to make up. Why would you lie about it? I mean, it could be a problem with perception, but yeah, I find that really, really fascinating. And also, of course, the grass thing might have some relationship to crop circles or...
Well, I was thinking that while I was reading that one, yeah. Well, let's close with some final thoughts from Masters, the guy who wrote the book, about his model of that these are visitors from the future. He says one of the most common questions he's asked when discussing his model is why? Why would our descendants care what we are doing in the past? And his simple answer is the behaviour of these visitors mirrors what we would do if we could time travel, an anthropological and scientific study of our ancestors.
Well, that's what Nick Bostrom says about the ancestor modelling in simulation, yeah.
I mean, I said I'd come on to it. He's even got a theory about the anal probe, Ben.
Go on.
Rather than asking us what we eat, makes much more sense to take a sample.
Does it, though? No, that's the wrong button.
Second one. No.
I really blow that one, I'm sorry.
Right.
Never mind. But why would you go up there? You would go into a stomach cavity.
Well, what if you could just... Easier to do it, right? You'd have to operate to do that.
Well, okay, here's the other option. We don't go around anal probing monkeys to find out what they've eaten. We pick up their scat.
Yeah, but we don't shit in the woods, do we?
No, but they just have a toilet for us, and they're like, "Oh, if you wouldn't mind going there."
Yeah, true. You've got to wait then.
Like Kim Il-un, I think he has his poop collected everywhere he goes.
Yeah, was it Putin's? Putin's got a poop taker.
Well, I mean, good for him.
But he also goes on to talk about other tests and interactions. He makes the point that as a paleoanthropologist himself, he would much rather study, if he could, the real thing rather than fossils or bones or analyse their written record. Go and experience it. Much better.
I suppose so, but... Like, I reckon if I was going to study what humans eat, I'd go to a restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, he's not just talking about what humans eat, but he also puts forward this idea that outside of the scientific, these visitors from the future could be tourists.
Yes, well, we've spoken about that before, and I think there's a high likelihood because, I mean, first thing you do is space tourism, in our timeline.
Yeah, he mentions that. And if that, there would bound to be rules about trying to keep a low profile, would there not? And trying to not disturb things. I mean, in terms of our reaction to them as alien interstellar visitors, well, this may be, I guess that we are aliens from the future could be a cover story that if they do have any interaction, it's less problematic than we are you from the future, right?
Yeah, it is.
He uses this analogy also that we might be mistaking it. He says, it's a really good point, he said many indigenous groups who mistook European conquistadors as gods, their appearance was alien as well as their technology. Which makes sense, and that's true. You know, these people have been kind of living on this, isolated island, and suddenly these people arrive that look nothing like you. They got the same shape, but skin colour, the way they're dressed, all this kind of stuff. And you go, oh my God, they're gods, they're aliens.
So it's very similar to when people from Cheltenham go clubbing in Cirencester.
But I also thought the tourist thing, what was interesting is, it could explain some of the high strangeness.
Yes, because you want to put on a show.
Well, not necessarily that, but do you remember when we were kids and you'd go on those school trips?
Vaguely.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You go and us going around the Science Museum, you'd always had some be in your group and lark around or do something stupid.
Yeah.
That could be what's happening. It's just they're just kind of rebellious teenagers having a laugh and getting told off for interfering with us.
Yeah.
Oh, take that wig off.
Oh, I like my wig.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought the stories were really interesting.
Yeah.
Whether you buy this future thing, I think there's a lot to it that makes a lot of sense. And I do get that idea that you would want to have a cover story. If it were true, better for us to, if they are found out, to make us believe they are alien creatures, because that is easier to explain and doesn't open up all kinds of difficult questions and things to discuss if they are us from the future.
Yeah, I think that's true. And, that would be a good way of covering up almost any of the scenarios that you've said. But it's still, there's a sad truth that there's a possibility that if what he is saying is true, then Bob Lazar isn't true.
I know you say that, but I still come back with what I said before. Doesn't mean that they screwed up and didn't crash one of these craft. And what we've got there, a bit like the Terminator, is a bit of technology from the future rather from an alien race.
But they fly, but not,
But the gravitational, interdimensional, space travel by its nature, as you're travelling at the speed of light, involves messing around with time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're not aging, but everybody you're leaving behind is.
Yeah.
So, time is intrinsically connected to this phenomena, whichever way you look at it. Unless these people are travelling at less than the speed of light. But, even if they come from our nearest solar system, that's a hell of a long trip.
Dang.
You just don't want to believe it, do you?
In a way, I don't, and that makes it worse because
it means that there are not these alien beings out there. Yeah, that's what that's the psychology for you behind it. It cuts off that. It doesn't cut it off. It just cuts off that route of us seeing it.
It does, and it also makes me think that maybe the great filter really is AI. If we've only had encounters with ourselves, where is everybody else? Did they kill themselves?
Yeah, that is a bit scary. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, as we've discussed before, Ben, this model that UFOs and alien encounters are our descendants. It does kind of explain some of the more puzzling questions in terms of the nature of these encounter reports. Well, in terms of the cases, I've just talked about 3 today, and the book contains 15. And like I said, some of the biggest ones out there. As well as there's all that detail about parallel universes and a bit more kind of sciencey stuff as well. So it's well worth a read. It's called the Extratempestrial Model. It's by Dr. Michael P. Masters. And don't forget to join us for Ben and Peter's Extra Scoop for some cases about getting jiggy with time-travelling humans or aliens. I'm calling it 50 Shades of Greys.
Oh, that's actually really very clever. I wish I'd thought of that.
Yeah.
So that's at patreon.com/TQM pod.
I'll follow the links in the show notes.
Become a member and prevent us from having to meet our ancestors from the future. Seriously, Christmas is bad enough. I don't want to have to go and meet more people. This is your great in the future aunt. Really? Yeah. Oh, it's a Smith's book token. Brilliant. Thanks so much.
Well, I know you loved them. Yeah, that was 20 years ago.
Go back to the flipping future.
All right.
Right, I'm going to cue this out. It turns out I'm completely useless with this desk. It's this one, isn't it?
Yes, that one.
Okay, well, we'll see you all on the Extra Scoop. Yeah. And stay safe, everybody. There's a couple of Patreons who've sent us some stuff. We'll be talking about it over there because I think it's supposed to be secret.
Oh, okay, good. All right, good. Bye.
Are you the quantum mechanics?